Little baby bunting, yeah. Little baby bunting, daddy's gone hunting, gonna fetch a... Agnes, it's me, Billy.
Hey guys, I'm back for day 4 of the 31 horror films, Christmas horror films in December. Yesterday I watched Silent Night, which was I don't think it's a reboot, but they call it the reboot of Silent Night, Deadly Night. And I kept referring to Silent Night, Bloody Night. I just had Bloody Night on the brain. I thought, well, why don't I just for day 4 watch the 84 original, just get a refresher. I've seen it, as many of you have, hundreds of times, but it's a great movie, and it's one of the classic cheesy 80s horror movies, slasher films. So I have 2 different copies of it. I've got the Anchor Bay 30th anniversary edition Blu-ray, and then I've got the this double feature DVD from Anchor Bay. I honestly, looking at the special features, other than the audio commentary on the Blu-ray with the writer and the producer, it's the same features as the DVD ported over. There's a 35-minute audio interview with Charles Sellier, the director. But as far as this Blu-ray, before I go into the film, I mean, this Blu-ray really looks to me like an upscan of a VHS copy or of the DVD. The quality is not very good. It's not bad, but it's better. You would expect more from a Blu-ray. I mean, it looks like just a scan, and all the uncut scenes, which were added back, look like they just came from a VHS. They were cut, and all the gory scenes that were eliminated for the theatrical release and added back are significantly different, significantly darker and grainier in texture. So it would be great if someone grabs this and eventually makes a really nice 2K restoration. It would be, or 4K restoration would be great. Now, as far as the film, there's a lot to talk about with this film. It came out in 1984, and I was 19, and I saw it in the theaters. The first week that this thing came out, it grossed more than, well, it came out the same weekend of Nightmare on Elm Street, and it outgrossed Nightmare on Elm Street. And its popularity only got greater when they started running TV commercials and ads for the film that really started, in my opinion, this uproar about Santa Claus killers. TriStar released this film, and TriStar at the time was owned by Coke, or Coke had some investment interest in it. And when the PTA, Parent Teachers Association, and church groups saw this TV ad, hadn't seen the movie, but all they had to see was the TV ad to realize that they had to go on a crusade to stop this movie. Coke, I think, panicked and kind of leveraged TriStar to pull the film. But a lot of that to me, when I was growing up at that time, you had Ronald Reagan economics. You had a lot of a swing from the 70s to the 80s, early 80s. The 70s was, and 60s and 70s was kind of a let it all hang out period. And then you had a swing back to ultra conservatism and fundamentalism and faith-related Christian type stuff that I think really impacted when this movie came out. You just had a lot of fundamentalist type conservative people that came out just all in a panic because we were showing a movie about a killer Santa. And the interesting thing about this is there have been others. Christmas Evil came out before this with no issues. And I think, again, what I think triggered it was that the TV ads started it, and then PTA mothers with not a whole lot to do, not a whole lot of time on their hands, so they took this up and started trying to get the movie pulled from theaters. And then the media, as they always do, fed into this thing, and it kind of snowballed. And you had lemmings flocking to the group that jumped on board, and it just gathered a lot of momentum and strength in terms of complaints and concern about the film. I mean, looking at it now, it's a cheesy, silly movie. I can't believe anybody took this seriously back in 1984. I'd love to have some people that were of that time that were protesting it come out and talk about it. Now, the interesting thing, one of the people that protested this film was Mickey Rooney. He said this was garbage and needed to be pulled. And Mickey Rooney later on, because of money, was in one of the sequels, which we'll talk about when I do, I think it was sequel 4 or 5. So we'll get there on that. The other interesting tidbit about this film is that Charles Sellier was a devout evangelical Catholic. And then he became a Mormon, and I think he switched back between Mormonism and Catholicism. But he, in his audio interview and later, said he really regrets making the movie, and he was one of these guys that prayed every day. And so it's ironic that you had all this moral outrage about the film when the director was a devout evangelical Christian. So, who apparently later on he was 67. I think he died in 2011, and some people said that he died of unknown circumstances or committed suicide. Who really knows? But there is an audio interview with Sellier on this and the DVD. It's about 35 minutes long. So yeah, this film is a lot of fun, no doubt about it. It's got a lot of great kills, and it's different from your normal slasher film because it attempts to tell the story from the point of view of the killer, which is really, most slasher films always focus on character development of the victims, and then you're supposed to empathize with the victim when they die. But in this case, really the whole story is centered around Billy and how he is through watching the death of his parents and then being brutalized at this orphanage by a nun, just snaps and becomes a Santa killer. So I think the problem that you get with this film, and maybe some people really felt even worse about it from a moral perspective, was that you empathize with the killer. Even though you don't really consciously realize you're doing it, you feel bad for Billy. As he's killing these people, you've kind of had his backstory, and you've gone with him through to the point where he snaps, and you have empathy for him, which is a totally different perspective from your typical slasher film. The film was originally entitled Sleigh Ride. It was supposed to be, at one point they were thinking about an early Sam Raimi, a young Sam Raimi directing this. That would have been interesting. But TriStar and Columbia Pictures decided they want to go with a known commodity, Charles Sellier. And Charles Sellier is known for a lot of docudrama films back in the 70s. He did In Search of, Bermuda Triangle, In Search of Jesus Christ, a lot of TV docudrama type movies. And he also, his biggest claim to fame was The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams. So the movie because of Charles Cellier's style, has a very docudrama look to it. Um, Almost analogous to Herschel Gordon Lewis in the way it's a matter of fact kind of style. And that matter of fact kind of style really has, to me, an impact in the first scene when the parents are pulled over and meet the first Santa killer, who is a criminal just looking for money, and he shoots and rapes, or attempts to rape the well, actually, he doesn't even attempt to rape the mother. He just pulls her blouse off and he cuts her throat. I mean, why would you why you bother with the blouse if you're just gonna cut her throat in the next second? But anyway, the way he shot that, it's very disturbing. I have to admit, it's a very disturbing scene. So his style, I think, works in this respect. It's just a kind of a matter of fact, just he's shooting the scene. There's no artistic license there. He's just covering the action and what happens in a flat kind of environment photographically. So that really adds to that first scene being very troublesome. So after that, Billy and his brother Ricky, who was a baby at the time, end up in an orphanage, and Billy is pretty much abused by this nun, the head nun, and it kind of comes to escalates to the point where she forces him to sit on a Santa, and I guess an attempt to cure him of his mental illness about Santas, and Billy hauls off, and just a sweeping left hook that even Joe Frazier would be proud of. Cold cocks the Santa and takes him down with just a roundhouse left hook. It was a beautiful shot. After that, now you switch to Billy at 18 years old, working at the hardware store. And the violence gets triggered by the owner of the hardware store not having a Santa, and asks Billy to kind of cover as Santa, and that's when he just snaps and starts his killing spree. Leanna Quigley is in this, and of course she is in the famous scene with the antlers. She gets hoisted up and impaled on antlers. And she's very thin looking in this. I mean, you can see her rib cage. I don't know whether she's got implants or not, but she's she can't weigh 98 pounds. So the end of the movie, so you go through that. The end of the movie sets up the sequel with Billy being shot just as he's about to kill the nun, and then his brother Ricky, who's now looks like maybe he's 8 or 9 years old, the axe that Billy was carrying falls in front of him, and Ricky spouts the words "naughty," which sets up sequel 2. It's a really fun ride. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. I would just buy this, and I would skip the Anchor Bay Blu-ray. I just think this is an upscan of the VHS, and go with this release. I will be doing Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 probably tomorrow, and then I'll be back for that review. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.